Well, hey everybody, it's Charlie and Glenn from So Into Bourbon, and we are here in beautiful Corydon, Indiana. Why are we here in Corydon, Indiana, you may ask? That's a great question. If you love bourbon, you love our channel, you know that you probably have at home in a cabinet your favorite piece of glassware. I know we do, this is mine. And we are here today at Zimmerman Art Glass because we're gonna get some custom glassware made.
Absolutely, Zimmerman Art Glass, which you see right behind us here. It's actually the second oldest family-run glass studio in the United States. It was started in 1942, and now it's being run and owned by fourth generation Carrie Zimmerman. So I'm kind of excited to get in here and see what's going on here. I've always been fascinated by
We're pumped.
makers.
You're gonna get to watch them make it, and make sure you stay tuned to the end. You never know what we'll do at the end.
Never know.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right, we're here with Carrie Zimmerman, owner of Zimmerman Art Glass. And Carrie, tell us about Zimmerman and what people can expect and all about your business.
All right, so we've been working glass here. This is our 82nd year.
Wow.
My grandfather started this business in 1942, and even his father before him was a glass blower, and they were in Pittsburgh, and they came from France, and I'm assuming they came through Philadelphia because that's where they settled. But all the glass people would always move together, and so eventually the company they worked for bought plants in Indiana. That's how they got to Indiana, and then eventually migrated south for different reasons, and ended up here in southern Indiana in Corydon. So, but they made the glass globes that went on kerosene lamps, you know, and as electricity just kind of started hitting the rural areas, there wasn't a big call for the lamp chimneys. So my grandfather, like I said, in 42, started this business. And so we've been doing it ever since here in downtown. Now we make all kinds of different items. We've got 3 generations. So each generation, and actually now 4 generations since my son Alex has joined us. But so each generation has added to the inventory with different things. Different items. Now, some of that comes from just us thinking about stuff, you know, that we want to do, or something we saw or got inspired by this. Some of it comes from the customers. Obviously, they came in and they'll ask, "Do you ever do this? You do this?" And we'll say, "Oh, well, let me think about that." And then, you know, before you know it, we do it. That's kind of how the whole bourbon glass thing came along too. I'm sure customers wanted it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, thanks again. We're excited to watch this decanter get made. Stay tuned, and this is going to be awesome.
So this is where we keep the hot molted glass. So inside there's a crucible. In other words, it's a big tub. It's about the size of a bushel basket, but it looks just like a big cereal bowl. And that's where all the glass is contained. Contains about 300 pounds of glass, and we've got it full. We always melt the glass from the raw materials, sand, soda ash, limestone, and all the other chemicals it takes to make glass. We melt that down on Sunday and Monday because that's our day off. Then by Tuesday, it's ready to go again. So it's really full. It's easy to see.
Oh my
But it's about 2,100 degrees in there. We melt it down at around 2,400, but we hold it at work at right around, like I said, around 2,100. And it's really just like putting spaghetti on a fork, you know, and you gather it up and you start twisting it in there and it'll gather right on there. But it's moving all the time. But that's clear glass. Now I know it looks orange, but you're just seeing all that heat. But we're going to go outside again, out under our awning. And that glass is going to look a little more yellowy the more sunlight we hits it. But it's crystal clear. There's no color at all in it. So we're going to add two of these lines of multicolored. And we'll melt that down. We're going to take it and put it in this barrel furnace behind me. Now, one thing I didn't mention, that temperature comes out of that furnace at about 2,100 degrees. That's what we hold it at. Now, this furnace in front of me, it's a reheating, or mainly just for reheating. As we work with the glass, it cools down, so we got to raise the temperature back up on it. So we'll use this reheat, but it runs a little over 2,200 degrees inside there. Now, once I get all that color melted down, and it's going to melt down just like we picked it up in dots. I can leave it dots if you want dots on it, or I'm going to take this one and I'm going to stretch those dots into these swirls. In other words, that way we're going to stretch those, when we stretch those dots, we're going to get that black and white color moving around in each other, kind of bleeding into each other a little bit. but it'll make a pretty design. So you can kind of see how that color's kind of turned to orange. Let me hook up my stick here. We're gonna need a little pressure. We're just gonna grab a hold of it and start twisting it. Blowing a little air when we are doing it, just so it doesn't collapse on us. See how it stretches that color? We're also going to stretch it by blowing it too, here after a while. When we start making it big and getting the shape we want, we're also going to stretch that glass. So now we got to get out all those little, where I grabbed those with those pinchers and twisted it, it creates all these little indentation or inside the glass. And so what that does is, if I were to go back and put another layer over top of it right now, every one of those little holes or indentations, they'll catch air and create a bubble. So you've got blown bubbles, you've got trapped air bubbles. Now, the trapped air bubbles, there's nothing wrong with it, they look good, but we don't want them in this particular piece. So we're gonna just take one of our cups and we're gonna start to smooth that out. Then we're also gonna bring that bubble out to the end a little bit by just blowing a little air into it. Like I said, it's almost like breathing on it. You can see our bubble extending out there. Now you've got a good idea of how that design's going to look some, because we've stretched it and swirled that. You can see with the white especially, and how it moves around and goes around the black, moves together. I think this piece here, you never know what you're going to get. I think this piece right here is very unique, where it went over top, almost put it on the inside. Got a little clear in between it. But we're going to stretch that even some more here in just a little bit. Like I said, when we start making this decanter longer, that's going to stretch that glass even more. So we're going to give it a little bit of temperature, cool down a little bit. So you talked about how the glass, you know, it comes out, now it doesn't, you can tell it's losing its heat. It's hard now. You can start to see the color to it. But just to give you an idea how hot, you know, it still is. I mean, it's still plenty hot, that glass is.
It's amazing how it goes so quickly from being so malleable to being solid.
The bigger piece, though, the larger heat sink you have, the longer you got to work with. A small piece, you got 20, 25 seconds to work with some of them before you have to put them back in. Bigger piece, maybe 45, 50 seconds. We get a little heat, and then we'll go back. And as you work the glass, you can't let it cool down too much, because it can reach that point. And I'd say that's around 700, 600 degrees, somewhere in there. If it reaches that point, it's going to too quickly, and the stress, because of the thickness of the glass and the different temperatures that are run through it, will create that stress, and that'll just blow the glass apart. So we heated it up just a little bit, just to give us a little more heat. And you can see if I stop turning it, barely moving. But that's how a lot of times we'll judge heat. We'll judge heat by how that glass is moving, how fast it's moving. The faster it moves, the hotter it is. Now we were holding it a while ago, you know, and because it wasn't moving, you can see now we've added more glass, so it's moving pretty good. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to get it under control. So we're going to roll it in a cup, make sure we get it nice and symmetrical. Now I want to bring that bubble out just a little bit further on this one. If not, I want a thick bottom on it, but I don't want it too thick. So I'm going to move that out just a little bit. Like I said, just almost breathing on it almost. Now we're going to getting a little bit of length to it. So we're going to roll it out. We can swing it some, use gravity. We use gravity a lot in here to help move that glass where we want it to.
I don't see a lot of scars on your arms and legs like
So
I would expect to.
So you went to burn question. Number one question we get asked is the burn question. And of course, to answer that, The answer is I've been burnt hundreds of times. You know, it's just kind of part of the job. Doesn't matter how much safety equipment you wear or how careful I am in here, sooner or later you're just going to touch something hot. I've got a few scars, but you know, it's just one of those things. If that bothers you, if getting burned bothers you, then you probably don't want to do this for a living. So now we're going to, this piece like we were talking before, it's on the rod upside down at the moment. So soon, eventually we're going to want to break it off this rod, and then we're going to want to cut it down. We're going to get it off the rod, so we're going to cut a little weak spot right there where it'll break away from the rod eventually. Now we're going to, this is going to be like a rectangle shape to it. We're going to go ahead and get that a little bit, but we're going to drop it down. So we've got a mold that we made, just a simple 4 pieces of wood mashed together. Got it soaking in water, made out of wild cherry. That's going to give us the shape that we really want. So I'm going to heat it up. We're going to bring it out and drop it down into that mold, and hopefully that'll give us a good, nice shape for the bourbon decanter. Let's go ahead and get us a little bit of length. Now, we got our shape pretty good. We still got to get it off the rod here. That's kind of a hold your breath moment. And then we get it off that rod, because we're going to break it off here and then eventually re-stick it down there. Let's cut that down just a little bit better.
It's incredible to think that 10 minutes ago that was a small golf ball sized piece of molten glass, and now look what it is.
We got a little bit of more heat there, and give us a little better cut.
Tools and methods seem so incredibly simple, yet incredibly hard.
The tools of an artist.
All right, so in order to get that off the rod, we're going to have to create a vibration. So we cut a weak spot here, but we need a vibration to create a vibration in the metal. So we're going to strike this metal, and then that vibration travels up, and when it hits that weak area or comes into contact, hopefully it's going to knock it right off. So let's put a little water on it. That cold water hits that hot glass, and that'll create a little bit of a thermal shock. Might need that too. Let's see. And that thermal shock, you know, will weaken that a little bit too right there. So we got it off the rod, okay. We're gonna heat this end back up for about 20 seconds. Hopefully that won't get too cold. That's the hold your breath moment, because we're gonna re-stick it here, and then we're gonna have it right side up.
Now what happens if it gets too cold? It'll just shatter?
I've lost my share of them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So you can tell we got that little bit good and hot. We're gonna put a couple of places here to help release when it's done.
That's just the best thing ever.
Like, I mean, that is a hold your breath moment, even for me. I mean, I've done a lot of them, but I'm still like, because that thing can get off. Can't let it get too cold, so you gotta flash it in there every once in a while. Because now we're gonna spot heat, because I don't want the whole bottle to be too hot, because it'll get really loose on me and lose the shape that we've got. So we've been working on the bottom of it, the shape of the bottle itself. Now we're going to work on the top. So like I said, I want to flash it in there every once in a while, just to keep that back warm, because if it gets cold, it can break away from that rod, end up inside this reheating furnace, or like I said, it could just shatter all entirely. We've got that top of it though right in the main burner, the flame of the main burner there. I can stop turning it. I can see it's starting to get kind of loose. That means our heat's working. We'll put a little bit more on the back before we bring it out. Now we're going to start opening that up. Get the shape we want. So we'll even it out a little bit to start with. But I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to open it wide, just pretty big, because I want to stretch that neck a little bit. I want to have it some shape to it, some length, taller, but I also want to come back, and I'm going to come back here a little bit and cut some shoulders on it. Give us a little shape on the back side of it there. Yeah, that's why I got the armband on, because when you get a piece that large, a lot of times the things we do, smaller pieces, you don't have to worry so much about that. But those bigger ones, they can put off some heat. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of try to get that. We want the stopper not to be too big. So we're going to pull it out maybe just a little more, not much. Then we're going to, like I said, I'm going to close that inside by just squeezing it down some. That gets like a good size right there. Took me just a little while just studying decanters and how do we get them to pour good and all that stuff. Gonna get a little heat before we're done. So one thing that we thought about was the top of it, how to finish that off, because we kept seeing like a lot of the, and mainly just looking at other people's work, watching, when I'd watch TV movies and drama series, and they had their decanters sitting there, to notice how they looked and how they worked. But a lot of times you were worried about the bourbon pouring down the side, coming down the glass. So it comes off, you create that rim, that lets it drip off. So when you pour it, you can hold it and pour it, it'll drip or pour off that rim. Then you can just turn it just a little bit and you don't lose a drop of it. There we go.
Look at that.
And then that'll be black and white. You can see it's losing its heat now, but it's got a nice thick bottom on it. And then we will make a stopper that fits down in there perfectly. So what I'm hoping is, this is another one of those moments that right here, where we cut that down, where we connected it back, that should be a pretty weak joint. I want it to be pretty weak because it could stick to the glass and tear out the bottom of the bottle, but we're pretty thick. I was kind of careful, watched how hot I got it, so it shouldn't be too bad. So slide this little tap, bring that right off. Now we're going to flip it up, or sit it on this. Then we're going to try to get our logo in the bottom of it, that letter Z, which stands for Zimmerman. We've got a stamp that we've got that on. So we're going to take a torch to the bottom of it, because where we rehooked it, it did leave a little bit of a rough spot down there. So we'll smooth that out. It takes just a second to smooth that out. Watch yourself on this. Got that heated up. Hopefully just get that Z down in there. We'll put that in there. Now later when it comes out of the oven, because what happens next is it's got to go in another oven where it's got to be cooled slowly so it won't crack or break. If we let it sit here, like I said, because of the thickness of the glass and those different temperatures running through that thickness, that's going to create that stress. Thank you. And that'll just blow that apart. That's the one thing I can guarantee. I can't guarantee you'll like it or the color or the shape or any of that, but you let it sit there, that's 100%. You give it may sit there 2 minutes, and then it's just gonna blow apart because of that stress. So by what we're doing in that oven, which is 900 degrees inside there, here, walk around there. No, we'll show it to you. So these are our annealing ovens here. Everything that we made yesterday's still in here cooling down. Okay. And so, but what we're trying to do, and this is where we just put the bourbon bottle. You can stand right here and I'll open it up and you can take a picture of it. It's back there in that back corner here, right here. Here, stand right there, you go. Back in there. So what we're trying to do is, we're trying to take, it's 900 degrees in there, and we're trying to stabilize the temperature. In other words, like I said, because of that bottle being thick at the bottom, thin at the top, we got different temperatures. So we're trying to get the whole thing one temperature, 900. Thick parts, thin parts, inside, outside, everything 900. Once everything that we make today goes into that oven and it's all consistent on the temperature, then that oven's on a little controller or programmer that'll start ramping that temperature down a little slow through the night. What that's going to do is going to draw that heat out of there evenly and slowly, and that's called annealing in glass. So to anneal a glass means to take all the stress out of it. But an easier way to think about what it's really doing in there is making the glass stronger. And it'll be in there till tomorrow, probably about 3, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And then and that's why we have a second oven. We'll work out of that one tomorrow. But well, once we take it out of there, you open those doors, it'll still be kind of hot. You can't touch it. Once we get the doors open, though, within a half an hour, you can start touching things and pull it out of there. And that's when we'll sign them and date them. That way, we got a little engraver we'll do that with. And that way, you can you'll know who made it, where it was made, and when it was made. And then it's good to go. You know, and you can do them in any colors, combinations of colors, and we've done them all too. And you can even etch. We've etched logos on them. We have a sandblasting facility in here, a sandblast etching that my office manager does, Melanie, and so they can put logos or whatever they want on there.
It's awesome.
Perfect. So is the 900 degrees, does that apply to whatever job you're doing, or does that vary depending on what you're making?
So pretty much they'll say that's a danger point right in there. I think it's probably maybe a little closer to 800 because I have put things in there at the end of the day. And also one thing about that too, that oven is the thicker that glass is. So if I'm doing a doorstop that's 8 inches thick, it's going to have a lot of time for that to equalize the temperature in it because of the thickness of it. And so you'll make usually those things that go in there in the morning. Now, even though the bourbon decanter is a pretty big and heavy piece, that's probably, I guess that's close to 4 pounds of glass maybe. But because it has been thinned, it'll reach that point pretty quick where we stabilize in that temperature. But yeah, that is, if it don't go in there, to answer your question though, like if we do a thin piece, like say I'm doing Christmas ornaments, I've got to get them at 900. They have to hit that point, but the temperature get equalized really quickly with a real thin Christmas ornament. And then we don't have to go through the ramp cycle, we can just turn it off. And because the boxes, all this white stuff you see, that's all inside there, and that's a ceramic fiber insulation. And so the boxes are insulated really well. So that's one way. We have it shut off at 600 degrees. It straight ramps down to gets to 600, then it shuts off. But at that point, it's going to still take, because of the insulation, good 12 to 15 hours. Wow. Depending on the heat sink that you built up in there with the pieces that you put in there, it's going to take 12 to 16 and 15 hours to cool down. Yeah, but I said about 70% of the color we use comes out of Kokomo. It just so happens this black glass come out of it used to be called, it's still called bullseye glass in Oregon. There's not too many places in here in our country that makes that. I can only think of a few, but Kokomo is the oldest. They're the oldest of this kind in this country. And but that's the bullseye, and the white's that Fenton glass. But all the, like I said, 75% of the colors we use are Kokomo colors.
Think about that, too.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. Watching somebody take a piece of melted glass, and turn it into art is awesome. Awesome.
I'm gonna try this in one layer instead of two, because the glass back there is a little stiff. That's gonna make the colors on the outside, but it won't make no difference. You won't really know any difference on it. So we're just gonna add one stripe. We could add two, but we're just gonna go with one. So it's the same way. This is gonna be made, upside down right now. We'll have to blow the pressure into it. Then we'll end up reversing it at the end. Now we're going to twist that or put a little But watch, I'm going to take and just turn it in one direction. See how that twists that right off the get-go? Now we're going to just twist this bottom a little more. We could turn it the other direction and it would take the twist right out of it. Let's round that up a little bit first. Get a little heat and then we'll get us a bubble going.
Wow.
Now we're going to try to anticipate to make that, we're going to keep that a little thicker down here, so we're going to try to help guide that pressure a little bit. So I'm going to make that point down there, and that's going to make that bubble blow back towards the rod some, so we can thin that down a little bit. That'll help to thin the lip of it some. We can always blow it down there in the bottom. I can tell that's pretty thin by just how I'm cutting it, how the glass feels.
Incredible.
Now we're gonna get some length to it, maybe, hopefully. So we're gonna swing it a little bit. Now we'll just work on that bottom real quick and then we'll reverse it. We'll use that, kind of push that back just a little bit. Kind of pushed that back a little bit, and that gave us that shape on the bottom as we were blowing a little bit of air pressure into it. Now we're going to go ahead and just cut this. Make us a nice little mark there, hopefully. Get us a little line because we want to reverse it again. All right, so there again, we're just going to touch that with a little bit of water. Give us a little vibration here. Pretty thin up there.
Great choice on the black and white.
Yeah,
Great choice. That looks awesome.
All right, so we're going to get some couple little release points there. And that's a piece you get because the jar was, not the jar, but the decanter was really, it was pretty heavy, you know, so it's going to hold that heat sink a little bit better, you know. These glasses like this, you get them here after you do that, they've been out for a little while, you've got to flash them in and out to try to warm them back up slowly. Because you could take them, if they get too low, they might not break there, but when they go back in the oven, they could shock them right there and break there. It's just thin up there, it's pretty thin, so it's getting hot in a hurry. Now, it won't keep its heat very long either, but so we're going to stretch it, even it out just a little bit. Now we're gonna take that. This next time we'll get it just right. We're gonna open it up so it has that where it's gonna be out this way from the bottom. It's gonna round, then it'll flare out just a little bit, just like the one you got down there. But if you want something different, now's the time to tell me.
Put in the custom and custom glassware.
Coming into shape, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
And then we'll just round those tools a little bit.
Look at that.
About what you want there.
It's nice.
It's not identical, but it's pretty close.
Close.
I can bring that more straight too. I don't have to, you know, it's just a little bit flared. You want it more straight? You want, I can skin it.
If you can, if it's
Oh
not
yeah,
too much.
no, we can do it. We get pretty personalized, you know, in here with people that want stuff to do, and sometimes I can recognize, because like I said, this is my 45th year, and I can recognize that they'll say, oh, can I get that base? And I just want it like this, you know. And I know that it's going to be very difficult for me to make it, that they're going to like it. Is that better?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm like, well, why don't you just come over here and we're just going to do it right when you're here. And then I'll start pulling it out because they're talking about height or something. And I'm like, you want it taller than that? Right now, you got to decide. Tell me right now.
Tell me now.
And they're like, yeah, that's good, that's good.
Quick decision.
Hopefully, like I said, that's got that little weak spot there because that's not super thin in the bottom. And this got a good weight to it, I think. It's not going to be too light or too heavy, either one. Then your color's going to be really good because you got that black and white in there. And then you're going to have plenty of clear so you can see your bourbon. We'll put our Z in there, our stamp or our logo. Now we're going to take it to the annealer. There it is.
Look at that.
Beautiful.
All right, Glenn, we just finished up at Zimmerman.
Dude, that was fun.
That was awesome.
That was cool.
It was so cool. And I know if you watch this and you're like, they haven't drank any bourbon, you're right, and we're itchy a little bit about it, but if you love bourbon, you have a favorite piece of glassware. Maybe two. I know I do. Do you?
I know I have a brand new favorite piece of glassware, and it's in the oven right now. It's cooling down. And I can't wait to
If
try
you've
it.
stayed with us to the very end, we have exciting news for you, our devoted subscribers. Send us an email, sointobourbon@gmail.com. In the subject, write Zimmerman, and you will be entered to win a custom piece of Zimmerman art glass. A beautiful whiskey glass for you. That's right, we're
Who else
giving
is
one
doing
away.
that?
Who else is giving you
on
custom?
Bourbon YouTube.
On Bourbon
Whiskey
YouTube.
is sending you a
Who's giving you
custom-made
custom
glass.
whiskey glass? So when your friends come over and you pour yourself one and they're like, what is that glass? You're like, oh, this is custom from Corydon, Indiana, and the boys at So Into Bourbon. sointobourbon@gmail.com, Zimmerman in the subject line, and you will be entered to win. Tell the people what to do.
You know what? Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at sointobourbon.com, Whiskey Realtor on TikTok, and as always, Charlie, why don't you tell them what to do.
Hey.
I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here.
He's leaving. So I'll say both parts. Keep your wallets loose and your bungholes tight. Good night, everybody. I don't know where Glenn went. He's gone. Check, check.
Hello? I look taller.
Looks like we're filming an album cover. Everybody's looking at us in court. Album cover. That's good. Okay. 1, 2.
We don't need to do that.
All right. We don't have to do that. All right. Ready? And we're coming in 3, 2, 1.